yangu ni kukata kuni, kila siku nikata kuni. Na mimi natamani ningepata vyanzo vingine vya matumizi, yani vya kupikia, yani kiachana na hizi kuni, vyanzo vingine na mimi nikivipata na mimi niweze kwenda na wakati kama wenzangu. Muda tu umekaa unashangaa tu machozi yanatiririka yenyewe yanatoka. Moshi unahisi umeshaniasi. Na huu mkono unakufa ganzi kwa sababu ya kazi. Kila siku ni kuni, kila siku ni kuni.
Can we please take our seats, dear colleagues? I am about to start. So thank you. Good morning, Presidents, Mr. Prime Minister, Excellencies, dear colleagues, a very good morning to all of you. A warm welcome, a very warm welcome to our summit on clean cooking in Africa. This is a great day for the International Energy Agency, and I am sure for my co-chairs to host so many of you here today. But let me first introduce my fellow co-chairs, Her Excellency President Hassan of Tanzania, His Excellency Prime Minister of Støre of Norway, President Adesina of the African Development Bank, dear colleagues, we have over 1,000 people here in this room today, and thousands of people are following this event live, and we have high-level representatives from over 60 countries, most of them being from Africa. I would like to welcome all of you, the leaders, ministers, chief executives, and other delegates who travel from all countries across 5 continents to discuss and to come out with some concrete results from our summit on clean cooking in Africa. Dear colleagues, why the International Energy Agency is helping to organize such an event? At the IEA, we are a data organization. We collect data, we study data. And since 25 years, we have been collecting data on the clean cooking issue across the world, since 25 years. And we publish this data every year in our annual report, World Energy Outlook, the reference book for the global energy industry, looking at what is happening in the world. And when we look at the numbers, it was a global issue, a problem, but it is becoming a problem more and more focused on sub-Saharan Africa. According to our numbers, dear colleagues, today, still, 4 out of 5 families use open fire or basic stoves for preparing a meal. And the fumes, the toxins coming from that cooking practices are causing respiratory diseases, especially for women and children. And each year, more than 500,000 people, mainly women and children, die prematurely because of the respiratory diseases, because of these cooking practices. For us, for IEA, I am sure for all of you, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable today, in this century, in 21st century. To fix this problem, to solve this problem, you don't need to discover new technology. You don't need a huge amount of budgets. You need good financial resources and right policies to implement. So it is the reason we thought at the IEA, in addition to data, providing data, policy recommendations, we have an another important characteristics, we provide concrete results. We thought we initiate to convene a summit where we bring governments around the world, industry leaders around the world, development institutions and the others, first to get fresh, new financial commitments to raise this issue, and the second, come up with a roadmap to use this money. It is the reason today, with our 3 co-chairs, we are going to see that the several governments, private sector representatives are going to announce financial commitments, pledges to address this problem at this very meeting. I am grateful, first of all, to our 3, my fellow co-chairs, and all those governments and the private sector executives who are going to make these pledges announcements today. And at the end of the morning session, after all pledges, I will be announcing you what is the total amount of commitment for the first time announced in this very meeting. I can only tell you that I was so happy when I heard the number from my colleagues. I couldn't sleep. I was so happy, and I'm sure you'll be very happy when I am going to announce this money, thanks to your efforts, thanks to the efforts of all 3 co-chairs. I want to finish by only telling you one thing, and go to my, hear the remarks of my distinguished co-chairs. I believe, I have the feeling of the international momentum we are creating here, plus the amount of financial resources coming through, plus the next steps we have in mind. Many years from now, in the future, when we look back, we will see that the 14th of May 2024 will be considered or remembered as the turning point to address this issue. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, dear colleagues, I would like to turn to my distinguished co-chairs, and I would like to start by inviting Her Excellency President Hassan of Tanzania to deliver her remarks. Madam President, please.
Excellency co-chairs, President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone, other heads of state and government, Excellencies, representatives of heads of state and government, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is fitting that we are convened in this UNESCO hall today, both because clean cooking means science, technology, and innovation, and because Tanzania enjoys a historic commitment to environmental conservation while promoting societal well-being. With protected areas encompassing 1/3 of its land, including 7 World Heritage Sites, with clean cooking, Tanzania's story of conservation, harmony, and responsibility continues. Clean cooking is about a just energy transition, and it's also about positively impacting our people, our planet, and our environment. It should therefore be a priority agenda for Africa. I, in this regard, commend the International Energy Agency for declaring 2024 the Year of Clean Cooking and for convening this summit. I also commend Dr. Birol and the co-chairs for their unwavering dedication. And I appreciate everyone here for honoring the invitation to discuss on ensuring clean cooking access for all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is said that currently clean cooking access rates globally range from 60% in Central and Southern Asia to over 80% in Eastern Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. To the contrary, Africa, the continent with the highest population growth rates and with all necessary natural resources, ranks the least in access to clean cooking. Over 900 million Africans rely on unclean cooking solutions, a fact which contributes to environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, and the health hazards. As we see it, clean cooking in Africa has three dimensions. Foremost is the lack of access to adequate, affordable, and sustainable solutions. Many households, predominantly in the rural areas, struggle to adopt clean cooking solutions due to high costs, limited availability, and insufficient supply chains. The second dimension is lack of global attention, insufficient funding, and lack of awareness about the economic opportunities with the clean cooking industry that hamper efforts to scale interventions. Moreover, development of the needed solution is limited by insufficient research and innovation. The third factor is absence of smart partnerships to ensure clean cooking access for all. Emphasis must be put on realizing possible, affordable, and tailor-made solutions, and on sustainable responses through development of clean cooking fuels and technologies in Africa. The key role of gas in just energy transition has to be recognized. Excellencies, amidst these challenges, central to Tanzania's own commitment is delivering on our recent launched 10-year clean cooking national strategy, which aims to ensure that 80% of Tanzanians use clean cooking solutions by the year 2034. A national fund will be established to support clean cooking, and the Prime Minister will provide high-level oversight of implementation of the strategy. Furthermore, given the disproportionate burden faced by women, Tanzania will continue to advocate the African Clean Cooking Support Program not to only address the environmental and health impacts, but also empower women as agents of change within their communities. Ladies and gentlemen, effectively advancing the clean cooking agenda in Africa would help protect the environment by increased use, development, access to clean cooking solutions. Increased access would provide women more opportunities to engage in other productive economic activities, arresting cycles of poverty and inequality. On the other hand, reduced use of biomass fuels would slash exposure rates to toxic fumes and save lives. We are confident that this is achievable. The lessons learned in Brazil, India, and Indonesia serve as prime examples, and in Africa, Ghana stands as an example with lessons to share. Excellencies, I would conclude by saying that this summit underscores our shared commitment to advancing the clean cooking agenda, and central to this are support mechanisms and policy measures that provide a framework towards universal adoption of affordable clean cooking fuels and technologies across the continent. The sustainability of these measures relies on the ecosystem that would mainstream those measures into existing development and environmental financing facilities. And in integrating this in key multilateral platforms. Now, to guarantee a resource for clean cooking, this summit has to call and humble requesting for a generous next replenishment by fund donors, specifically of the African Development Bank Fund, that includes 12 billion for clean cooking and of IDA 21 cycle of the World Bank, so as to reach a financial target that the International Energy Agency projects require for clean cooking for all by 2030. We thus thank those who have already contributed, and we'll know the number later, but we still welcome more pledges of policy actions, smart partnership and support in ensuring clean cooking access for all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Dear colleagues, as Madam President underlined, this issue is a health issue, it's an economic issue, energy issue, environmental issue, but maybe above all, it is a gender issue. And I want to thank Madam President for her leadership in this area. Thank you very much, Madam President. So, dear colleagues, when we had the idea to initiate such a summit and raising the international profile of this issue and also raising a lot of hope, raising a lot of money, we thought whom to start with to ask for the support. It was last year in November in Oslo. It was a cold day, mostly cold in Oslo anyways. And I was going to visit the Mr. Prime Minister, and I thought maybe I should try my luck. I can raise the interest of Mr. Prime Minister to be a part of this effort. Dear colleagues, I had a lot of numbers, and before finishing my numbers and explaining the situation, and Mr. Prime Minister said, yes, I am interested to be a part of this effort. And he is the first one I have recruited for this summit. I thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Prime Minister of Norway.
Thank you, co-chairs and excellencies, all of you. May I call you champions for a healthier and more sustainable world? It was an easy question, Dr. Birol, and I'd like to salute you. This is really leadership at the top level, cutting through bureaucratic talk and going for action. I think this is an excellent initiative. We need more of them. And it's really combining the big picture, as I see it, as we deal with at summits and at COPs and other major events, to talk about sustainable energy, reaching our climate objectives. Are we on track? And then this very practical approach of how do we prepare our daily meals. We all have to do that. And we have this shocking fact that cooking your daily meal is a dangerous thing for millions and millions of people. So I believe this is a real opportunity, and you mentioned, Dr. Birol, all the different dimensions that come together, and I can subscribe to all of them. I believe that this summit is about one of those problems where we can tell the world community we can fix it. It is possible to deal with it when so many other issues are complex. It's a unique opportunity to prevent millions of premature deaths, to cut emissions, reduce biodiversity loss, and to improve productivity and create economic growth. But as you said, it's a gender issue, and it's really also about making life better for millions of women and children. I came about this theme when I was working with Dr. Brundtland at the World Health Organization some 25 years ago. And we saw from the statistics that indoor air pollution is a prime cause of premature death for women and for children. And the image that has always stuck with me on visits to Africa is this. After a dangerous walk that can last for hours to get the fuel, it's the caring mother with a young child on her back, leaning over the cooking gear that she has available. Both of them inhaling, the mother and the child, polluted air from the fumes of the firewood she has collected, as the mother is working hard to feed her family. So this, colleagues, is a solvable problem. So when Dr. Birol raised it with me, it was an old engagement for me that this is not high-tech, this is really low-tech, available tech, and it's really about getting together finance, logistics, and political will to move forward. We know that these solutions can transform lives. We've seen that it works in other parts of the world, especially in Asia. And so the challenge here today is not to reinvent the wheel, but to make sure that such solutions, the technologies, and the fuels reach African households. And I also salute the President of Tanzania for being such a dignified voice on this. She paid a official state visit to Norway some weeks ago, and we had the opportunity to raise this issue, and I'm very happy to be with you on this, Madam President. And then again, here at UNESCO, never before have so many leaders met to discuss clean cooking. So I believe we have a big undertaking. We can now move forward and make a difference. I also meet Dr. Birol in another capacity, and also the President of the African Development Bank with all his initiatives that are really making a difference, as co-chair of the Global Leadership Council of the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. I use every opportunity to underline the value of partnerships. We made a great partnership on vaccines 25 years ago, the Gavi Alliance, that has brought vaccines to millions of children, really secured children from dying of under age of 5 diseases. And now we have to take that approach of partnership, which is not about seminars, but about real action, to governments, private companies, development partners, international organizations, philanthropists and civil society, and we can achieve more. Norway will, for its part, continue to be a trusted partner for our friends in Africa. We have supported programs in many African countries on this issue, including Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Mozambique. We have worked and are working with the World Bank, the African Development Bank, private sector, and civil society. And we are now also urging the energy companies that have skills and competence in this to come forward with technical solutions and also finance to support. I'm pleased to announce today that Norway is committed to investing approximately $50 million to support clean cooking. Ready to continue to champion this cause, especially welcoming the private sector and prime among them the energy companies to take part. So, dear friends, together we can make a difference on this issue. And this rainy day in Paris, it is sun in Oslo and warm, I can tell you, is an excellent start. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Dear colleagues, can you please join me to thank Mr. Prime Minister for this 50 million euros coming to Africa. I say Oslo, Norway has cold weather, but they have warm hearts, and it's one of the expression of that. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister, for your leadership here. Dear colleagues, there is an institution which is at the heart of all development issues in Africa, and I am very happy now to invite my co-chair, the President of African Development Bank, Mr. Adesina. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, my dear brother, Dr. Birol. Thank you to all your excellencies, the co-chairs. Your Excellency, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, my dear sister, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Your Excellency, President Bio, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Your Excellency Fo Nasingbe, President of the Republic of Togo. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Jonas Støre of Norway, and thank you for all the great leadership that you provide, even on our joint effort on the Global Alliance on Energy for People and the Planet. And of course, my dear brother, Dr. Faith Birol, the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency. Your Excellencies, heads of international organizations, honorable ministers, business leaders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me great delight to welcome you all to the Summit on Clean Cooking in Africa. Please permit me, I will be speaking both as President of the African Development Bank, but as somebody who suffered a lot from the consequences of lack of clean cooking as a kid. It's a great honor to co-chair this summit with Our Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency John Gahr Støre, Prime Minister of Norway, Dr. Faith Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency. Thank you all for honoring our invitation. I'm delighted that the COP29 President-designate is here with us today. This means that what we are discussing today will shape COP29 agenda and our discussion on energy transition globally. This momentous summit is the largest ever gathering of leaders and decision makers dedicated to confronting the urgent issue of lack of access to clean cooking in Africa. It is very timely, and it must be decisive. It is shocking that 1.2 billion people in Africa, that means basically 1.2 billion women, do not have access to clean cooking solutions. They rely on biomass for wood and charcoal to cook. These hardworking women who cook for their families and their girls spend several hours looking for and collecting firewood and charcoal. With bent backs, they carry loads of firewood and charcoal and walk several kilometers just to be able to cook a decent meal for their families, things we all take for granted. And how can this be? Why must we allow such a thing to happen? Africa loses 600,000 women and children annually from the effects of secondary smoke from partial combustion of biomass, firewood, and charcoal. And that means we will lose 6 million people in 10 years if we don't change that, and that's not acceptable. It's estimated globally that the health cost alone from impaired health is in the order of $1.4 trillion, according to the International Energy Agency, with over half of that, $700 billion, being in Africa. As a kid, I'm not wearing glasses just because I went to university or anything like that. I started wearing as a kid because I spent most of my time collecting firewood and charcoal and blowing into the stoves. I lost a friend of mine. She, like us in low-income neighborhoods, they couldn't afford gas or anything like that. And she had gone to buy kerosene from one of the gas stations close by. They poured petrol into the cylinder for her. She went home, she tried to cook, she died. So did all her family. How can this be? Why do we let things like that happen? Access to clean cooking is more than cooking. It is about human dignity, fairness, justice, and equity for women. It is more than lighting of the stoves. It is about life itself. The imperative of clean cooking is clear and overwhelming for the environment and climate change, and Madam President Samia had laid it out with the Prime Minister and also Dr. Birol. Access to clean cooking will save at least, according to their estimates of IEA, 200 million hectares of forest globally, with 110 million of that being in Africa by 2030. Universal access to clean cooking will reduce greenhouse gas emissions globally by 1.9 gigatons of CO2 equivalent, which is equal to all the emissions from airplanes and ships today, again, according to the IEA. Providing universal access to clean cooking, therefore, is right, fair, just, and the globally responsible thing to do. Our gathering here today will take decisive actions to solve this problem, and I know that we can, at scale, once and for all, for women and girls, for life, for the environment, and for dignity itself. The solutions for clean cooking are well known, from liquefied petroleum gas, LPGs, natural gas for use for electricity to allow for electric stoves or e-cooking, use of ethanol and biogas. We know, at least I know, the so-called improved clean cooking stoves that I'm not denigrating it at all because I used it as a kid. But they simply give you thermal efficiency in the use of heat for cooking. But they still rely on firewood, on charcoal, or biomass. So let's be clear. There is nothing improved in continued suffering. No woman in Africa should have to cook again with firewood, charcoal, and biomass. We have a saying in my culture, what is bad is not good. I wish to highly commend Our Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania for establishing the national program you have to solve this challenge in Tanzania and in other parts of Africa with the African Women Clean Cooking Support Program, which you launched at COP28. Sometimes I think if you want to solve problems, just give it to women. They'll solve it. It's time to restore dignity to women to cook in Africa, just like everybody does in all developed countries. The International Energy Agency has estimated that it will cost only $4 billion per year in Africa to achieve universal access to clean cooking. African governments must play their leadership role. Governments must allocate at least 5% of the current $70 billion spent on energy investments annually for the provision of clean cooking solutions. And that will provide us close to the $4 billion needed annually to solve this problem. I want to thank the Prime Minister of Norway for the announcement that he has made. Norway has always been a great supporter of all of the efforts that we do on renewable energy. And thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Please give it up to them. The Development Bank will play a major part in this collective effort, and we will allocate 20% of all of our financing in energy to clean cooking. I just want to be sure it wasn't easy for me to do that. I locked up my vice president. Is you here? Yes, Kevin. I locked him up in my hotel room until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I threatened him at the end of the day. I said, if you can't solve it for women, I'll replace you with a woman as a vice president. And so he came up with a number, so he kept his job. I'm therefore pleased to announce to you today that the African Development Bank will commit $2 billion to clean cooking over the next 10 years. We will work with governments to develop and roll out clean cooking solutions at scale, along with supportive policies, standards, safety, and regulations, as well as fiscal incentives to improve accessibility and affordability. We cannot solve the global clean cooking challenge unless we first solve it first in Africa. I therefore wish to thank you, Madam President. I took note, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, for your call for $12 billion facility to be set aside for the 17th replenishment of the African Development Fund to drive universal access to clean cooking for women across Africa. If you support that, please clap for her, and we're grateful for that. The Development Bank stands ready to work with all the countries, with the IEA, who's doing an astounding job, the African Clean Cooking Consortium and partners to mobilize the resources to tackle this challenge and get it done once and for all, and give opportunity for girls not to die like my friend did. Let us from today create a spark and trigger a movement to assure 100% access to clean cooking for women in Africa. It's the right thing to do, and I know that we can do it. So let's join this on a movement and get it done. Thank you all very much.
So very many thanks, President Adesina, for this very comprehensive speech and repeating what you have already gave the good news during the COP28, your great contribution, financial contribution to address this very problem. So, dear colleagues, I would like to now invite three guests of honors to the stage. If I may, I would like to start with inviting His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, President of Sierra Leone. And together with Mr. President, I also would like to invite another President, His Excellency Mr. Faure Esozima Gnasingbe, President of Republic of Togo. I am pleased to invite on the stage the Executive Vice President of European Commission, Mr. Maroš Šefčovič. Dear colleagues, I would like to invite the Excellencies to give us their perspective on this very issue, and I would like to start with inviting President of Sierra Leone. Mr. President, please.
Thank you very much, Fatih. Your Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Excellency President Faure Gnassingbé, President of the Republic of Togo, Your Excellency Jonas Gahr Støre, Prime Minister of Norway, my brother Dr. Akiwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here this morning to participate in this very historic, first ever global summit on clean cooking in Africa. I am particularly heartened that my dear sister, President Samia Hassan, is co-chairing this summit along three distinguished individuals: the Prime Minister of Norway, Dr. Adesina, and Dr. Birol, whose leadership and commitment to this cause are truly, truly commendable. Thank you for your commitment. I wish to commend the International Energy Agency and the African Development Bank Group for convening the summit. The urgency of our task is underscored by the IEA's analysis, which reveals that nearly 1 in 5 Africans still cook their meals over open fires and traditional stoves. Shockingly, 900 million Africans lack access to clean cooking fuels, a number that is projected to increase by 2030 if we do not act swiftly and decisively. Regrettably, Our past experience have revealed a disheartening truth. Clean cooking, a matter of utmost importance, is often overlooked in our energy access and electrification planning process in our various countries. Today's summit is a call to action, a plea to prioritize this crucial matter for the betterment of our people and our planet. This summit calls on all of us to act big and boldly if we are to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 7. We cannot achieve our global net zero target without a robust effort to address access to clean cooking solutions in Africa and South Asia in particular. Therefore, we must be bold enough to implement the right policies, create the enabling environment to ensure that close to the 1 billion people currently lacking access to clean cooking in Africa and elsewhere can transition to cleaner fuels and technologies. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the context of Sierra Leone, the 2023 SDG tracking report shows that Sierra Leone's access to clean fuel and technologies for cooking was at 0.8% in 2021, with 1.5% of the population in urban areas having access and 0% in rural areas with access. The absence of access to clean cooking solutions significantly affects Sierra Leone's economy, with an estimated annual cost of inaction totaling $4.7 billion. These costs stem from adverse impacts on various fronts. Women's lost productivity, $1.4 billion. Health, $3.2 billion. And climate change impact, $0.2 billion. So, ladies and gentlemen, this summit on clean cooking in Africa to make 2024 a turning point for clean cooking is critical for Sierra Leone, and that is why I am here. My government recognizes the importance of access to clean cooking and is committed to taking bold steps because it is the right thing to do for our people. We have mainstreamed clean cooking in our energy planning processes, and I am pleased to inform this august body that in the third quarter of this year, we will finalize the following key policy instruments and initiatives to address clean cooking issues. With the support of the Sustainable Energy for All, we will complete a just and inclusive energy transition plan or green growth plan, which includes access to clean cooking as a major pillar. With the support of the World Bank, a clean cooking strategy and action plan will be completed by June. With the support of the Clean Cooking Alliance, we are establishing the Clean Cooking Delivery Unit embedded within the Presidential Initiative on Climate Change, Renewable Energy, and Food Security. We are establishing a Climate Finance Energy Innovation Hub, with OPEC Fund for International Development. Furthermore, with the support of the University of Loughborough and the Modern Energy Cooking Services, we will commence a techno-economic study and readiness assessment for electric cooking in urban areas, similar to work done in Uganda, Kenya, and Mozambique. As a country susceptible to the harsh realities of climate change, we are committed to building climate resilience and gradually transitioning to green growth. Notably, we are working on strategic policy instruments, including a National Climate Change Act and a set of regulations for climate finance to support our forests, provide an enabling environment for investment in climate resilience and alternative livelihoods, and create a transparent and credible carbon trading system that will leverage our abundant green assets. Ladies and gentlemen, I acknowledge the commitment and leadership of my fellow African leaders. Several nations across the continent are taking bold steps towards clean cooking, setting ambitious targets and working with Clean Cooking Alliance to establish delivery units and enable more carbon finance and private sector investment in the sector. We recognize that each country's transition journey is different and must be respected. Progress has been made, and more is possible with our collective efforts. It requires strong commitment and action, political will, and adequate resources. The IEA estimates that we need about $4 billion a year to solve our challenges and ensure universal clean cooking access by 2030. Today, we have a unique opportunity to change the trajectory of clean cooking for all, especially for our women who have been the most disenfranchised. You are here because you want to make a difference. Let us join hands together and make a difference, change lives, and protect our environment. Let us make 2024 a turning point for clean cooking in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yes, as you said, let's change the trajectory. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, when I look at now the international momentum, and I will tell you more in a few minutes, and when I look at the money, the financial resources we have raised, and the roadmap we are putting together with several African countries, gives me the hope that, as Mr. President mentioned, this year can be a turning point on this very issue. And thank you very much for your leadership here, Mr. President. And if I may, I want to also thank you very much for one of your experts, Kande Yumkela, working with me since many, many years. Thank you very much, Kande, for that. We are honored by the presence of another president, His Excellency President Gnassingbé of Togo, who has been also very much involved in energy access issues. And I would like to now offer the floor to you, sir. Please.
Avec votre indulgence, je vais devoir parler en français. Madame, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, chers amis participants à ce sommet, nous sommes réunis pour traiter d'un sujet peu connu du grand public et qui revêt pourtant une importance majeure. La pratique de la cuisson des aliments date de la préhistoire les premiers foyers connus pour la cuisson ont été détectés au Moyen-Orient il y a à peu près 800 000 ans. Et chacun s'accorde à reconnaître qu'il s'est agi d'une étape essentielle dans l'émergence de nos civilisations. Mais aujourd'hui, force est de constater que la cuisson traditionnelle n'est plus soutenable. C'est un changement important qui requiert de notre part des politiques publiques puissantes. Il y a pour moi 3 raisons essentielles pour lesquelles la cuisson traditionnelle n'est plus soutenable. Elles ont été évoquées, mais je vais les rappeler rapidement. Il y a d'abord un enjeu de santé publique. Tout le monde connaît les effets nocifs des rejets du monoxyde de carbone et des particules fines dont les effets sur la santé sont bien connus. Et je rappellerai malheureusement ce chiffre qui a déjà été annoncé que 3,7 millions de décès dans le monde, dont 600 000 en Afrique seule. Ensuite, la cuisson traditionnelle n'est pas soutenable dans la perspective d'une croissance verte du continent. En remplaçant les méthodes de cuisson traditionnelles basées sur la biomasse par des alternatives plus propres, on peut réduire considérablement les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Ceci permettra non seulement de limiter les émissions de carbone, mais jouera également un rôle important dans la prévention de la déforestation. Je rappelle qu'il faut noter qu'environ 2 tiers de cette réduction peuvent provenir de l'Afrique. Enfin, la cuisson propre est un enjeu de développement social et d'équité entre les hommes et les femmes, comme vous l'avez rappelé, Dr Birol. Tout d'abord, les femmes et les enfants constituent 60% des victimes de la pollution domestique. Ensuite, l'utilisation de la biomasse pour la cuisson est extrêmement chronophage. Elle nécessite en moyenne plus de 2 heures par jour pour la collecte, ce temps précieux pouvant être consacré au travail ou à l'éducation. Cette situation, comme vous le devinez, handicape surtout les femmes et les jeunes filles qui sont souvent les principales responsables de la collecte. Il est donc indispensable que la communauté internationale se saisisse de ce problème. Comme vous le savez, il y a 3 grandes pistes pour la cuisson propre. La cuisson au GPL, c'est pour moi la plus efficace, aussi bien en termes de réduction des émissions que de facilité d'utilisation. Il est prévu que cette méthode représente environ 70% de la diffusion de la cuisson propre dans les années à venir. La cuisson électrique est une option intéressante, la meilleure en matière d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre, mais elle requiert une bonne qualité des réseaux électriques, ce qui est un défi majeur pour nos pays. Il y a enfin la cuisson par foyer amélioré qui utilise toujours de la biomasse, mais sont conçus pour être plus efficaces et moins polluants que les méthodes traditionnelles. Cela reste pour moi une demi-mesure. C'est donc principalement par la cuisson au GPL que nous pouvons espérer atteindre nos objectifs. Ceux-ci ont été définis au moment de la COP28. La BAD a joué un rôle moteur et je salue mon frère Adesina, qui a promis d'orienter environ 20% de ses investissements dans l'énergie vers ce secteur. Et pourtant, chers amis, les progrès sont jusqu'à présent trop lents en Afrique comme ailleurs. On estime que l'Afrique terminera malheureusement la décennie avec le même nombre de personnes utilisant des méthodes de cuisson traditionnelles, soit plus d'1 milliard. Évidemment, la croissance démographique joue son rôle et neutralise les progrès réalisés. Mais malgré cela, on avance beaucoup trop lentement. Ma conviction est qu'à l'avenir, les avancées viendront avant tout de l'implication de la puissance publique. Bien entendu, le secteur privé jouera un rôle important dans le succès de la cuisson propre en Afrique. Le fait que l'Afrique puisse représenter environ 2 tiers de la réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre dans le passage à la cuisson propre ouvre des perspectives pour des solutions basées sur les crédits carbone. Ainsi, par exemple, un programme au Kenya émet des crédits carbone pour subventionner la vente des kits à des prix très réduits. De même, les fonds d'infrastructure pourraient également être intéressés par le secteur de la cuisson propre, puisque le GPL doit être produit, transporté, stocké et vendu. Cela étant, aucun progrès décisif ne sera réalisé sans la pleine implication des pouvoirs publics. Je vois 4 lignes d'action. Premièrement, les subventions à l'achat de kits. L'appui gouvernemental est crucial pour de nombreux ménages pauvres qui ne disposent pas des ressources financières nécessaires pour acquérir des cuisinières propres. Deuxièmement, les subventions pour assurer la stabilité des prix. Il est indispensable de contrôler les prix du GPL pour limiter la volatilité des cours. En 2022, environ 100 millions de ménages dans le monde sont retournés à la cuisson à la biomasse, incapables de supporter le coût du GPL, comme par exemple au Nigeria après mars 2023. Troisièmement, la gestion de la politique de transition, puisque des millions de personnes sont employées dans les secteurs du bois de chauffage et du charbon en Afrique. Et enfin, la régulation. Bien que les crédits carbone soient prometteurs, il est important de noter que des scandales ont mis en lumière le manque de sérieux de certains projets. Cette situation souligne la nécessité d'une régulation et d'une supervision accrue pour garantir la fiabilité et l'efficacité de ces initiatives. Pour conclure, je veux souligner que dans cette affaire, une coordination continentale est incontournable. D'abord, je pense qu'une politique énergétique continentale est essentielle pour faciliter la transition vers la cuisson propre en Afrique. Actuellement, l'Afrique importe presque tout son GPL, faute de capacité de raffinage suffisante sur le continent. Il faut progresser vers l'autonomie énergétique et réduire les vulnérabilités aux fluctuations de marché, comme c'est observé à la suite du conflit en Ukraine. Pour cela, il est nécessaire de développer une production continentale de GPL et des infrastructures adéquates telles que des capacités de stockage. Ma seconde conclusion est que je suis convaincu que l'Afrique doit parler d'une seule voix sur cette question comme sur d'autres. La transition vers la cuisson propre est controversée car elle implique souvent de subventionner les énergies fossiles comme le GPL. Aussi, l'investissement dans les combustibles fossiles devient-il de plus en plus difficile pour les institutions financières internationales et les investisseurs ESG. Face à ce dilemme, il est important pour l'Afrique de faire valoir que des exceptions doivent être envisagées. Les fonds ESG et les institutions de financement du développement doivent ajuster leurs critères pour soutenir des solutions de transition comme le GPL qui, bien que fossile, offre une alternative nettement plus propre que la biomasse. Finalement, je pense que nous devons d'être réalistes et clairs pour ne pas nous exposer à des critiques stériles. C'est pourquoi je préférerais que nous parlions de cuisson plus propre que de cuisson propre. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci pour un grand merci pour votre discours. So, dear colleagues, the last speaker of this session is from Europe. Europe itself went through difficult times in terms of energy in the last 2 years, but thanks to the good management of this crisis by the European Commission and having good friends like Norway, I should say, Europe went through these difficult times. And I know that our speaker today, the Executive Vice President Šefčovič, and his colleagues know that Africa is a neighbor of Europe and a good neighbor, and I would like to hear now, together with you, the views of the Executive Vice President of European Commission, Maroš Šefčovič.
Dear President, dear Prime Minister, Excellencies, honorable guests, and ladies and gentlemen, indeed, it's a pleasure to be here today, and I would like to thank our good friend Fatih and the International Energy Agency, as well as African Development Bank and the Clean Cooking Alliance for organizing this very important event, because it gives us an opportunity to discuss an issue that is often overlooked, but which, as we heard also this morning, affects the everyday lives of so many. 2.3 billion people around the world lack access to clean cooking. And this is a particular concern in Africa. And those who know me a little bit, you know that Africa is very close to my heart, because I served in Africa, I feel for Africa, and I brought the most precious gift from Africa. My daughter, Martina, was born there in Zimbabwe. And therefore, for me, the reality that across the whole continent, the people are dying every day as a result of not having access to clean cooking is clearly unacceptable. And on top of it, especially when we are talking about the majority, overwhelming majority of women and children who are the most affected. But this problem can be fixed. I'm very obliged to IEA that they put a concrete figure on it. We are talking about $4 billion of capital investment per year, and that would be enough to ensure that everyone in Africa has access to clean cooking by 2030. So together, we can fix an issue affecting billions of people in just 6 years with an amount of funding well within our reach. And if you want to be honest, let's look around the current global situation. There are not that many global issues, global problems that can be solved within 6 years and with this amount of money, especially if they have such a massive negative impact economically, environmentally, and of course, when it comes to such an extent, also the issue of gender equality. So I think that it's quite clear that we must act, and we must act now. I would like to reassure you that the European Union is fully committed to playing its part. The EU funding already supports many initiatives such as Cook Fund program in Tanzania, which has so far supported small and medium enterprises distributing clean cooking devices and fuel, or the project on reducing the climate impact of cooking in Rwanda, which supports the sustainable production and dissemination of improved cook stove. So we know that these initiatives work and that they bring results. And therefore I am pleased to announce today that as a Team Europe, we have mobilized 400 million euros for clean cooking activities. I saw the face of Fatih brighten immediately. So 400 million for clean cooking activities under EU Africa Green Energy Initiative, and I'm of course extremely happy that 150 million euros of this tranche came from the EU funds alone. So we would make sure that this funding is directed notably to Spark Plus, the first fund dedicated to the clean cooking financing companies that offer next generation energy solution in sub-Saharan Africa, and the strengthening of entrepreneurial ecosystem for clean cooking program. Team Europe will also soon launch a regional clean cooking action for West Africa, initiative supporting policy making, private sector development, and enabling environment for cleaner cooking solutions. And we would continue to promote collaboration between multilateral and national partners. We in the EU very much welcome all international endeavors such as Clean Cooking Alliance, High-Level Platform for Action, and the Global E-Cooking Coalition, because we believe that through initiatives like these, we can foster innovative partnership to support market development and private sector growth. I would say that here the one word would be key: cooperation, synergy, and complementary support to each other to make sure that together we would develop the necessary results. All this would be vital, that our efforts would make a difference to the lives of people all around the world, but especially in Africa when it comes to clean cooking. Thank you very much.
So, dear colleagues, can you please join me to thank the European Union for its very generous contribution? Thank you. So, Maros, thank you very much for this generous contribution. We were friends, but now we are very good friends after this. Thank you very much for that. So, dear colleagues, may I now thank all our speakers, and now I would like to suggest that we have a picture. Okay. As I said, when we were organizing this event, one of the personalities that I talked to was Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary of the United Nations. He very much wanted to be with us today, but he couldn't come. So he sent a video message to all of us. I would like now ask my colleagues to run this video of the Secretary General of United Nations.
Excellencies, friends, I thank the International Energy Agency and its Executive Director, Dr. Fatih Birol, for convening this important summit. Cooking fuels are fueling crisis. Globally, over 2 billion people, most of them poor, are forced to rely on cooking methods that make them sick, hobble sustainable development, and add to climate chaos. Without action, more than 1 billion people in sub-Saharan Africa alone will still not have access to clean cooking by 2030. This is bad for women and girls, who are often responsible for collecting fuels for preparing meals. It is bad for health. Indoor pollution, including from fires and stoves, kills over 3 million people every year, with women and children most at risk. And it's bad for the climate. Domestic fires add to the pollution, causing the world to overheat, with devastating effects for the world's poorest, who have done the least to cause the crisis. Reversing these injustices must be a global priority. We need urgent action to give everyone, everywhere, access to clean cooking. We have a recipe for success, our global roadmap for just and inclusive clean cooking transition. The United Nations roadmap charts a path to universal access to clean cooking by 2030 and net zero cooking by 2050. I urge you all to put it into practice and to ensure finance is available for sustainable development and climate action, including clean cooking. Developed countries must honor their climate finance commitments, and all countries must push for a strong finance outcome at COP29 this year. And I urge you to support United Nations proposals for an SDG stimulus of $500 billion a year, including action on debt to scale up affordable long-term financing for countries in need. Together, let's clean up cooking and create a healthier, safer, more equal world for us all. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary General, for this important contribution. Now, dear colleagues, the next two sessions we will hear more announcements from governments and from the private players. So I would like to, and after this, I will come and announce the total amount of money raised in this very meeting. But now it is my great pleasure and honor to invite Her Excellency Madame Michelle Bachelet on stage, who will be moderating this session. Former President of Chile, and he's been the High Commissioner for Human Rights at United Nations. We all know Madame Bachelet. Thank you very much, Madame President, being with us. Thank you very much, and over to you. Thank you.
News looks like outside is not raining, it might be the sun shining. Let's hope so. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is truly a pleasure to moderate the next segment of the IEA Summit on Clean Cooking in Africa, focusing particularly on elevating clean cooking on the global energy, health, development, gender, environment, and climate agenda. We have heard today, of course, what we know, but it's important to remember so we can really give more, I would say, priority to this issue, that the lack of access to clean cooking has implications across so many aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals, from health, gender, environment, protection, development, education, and climate. I am a medical doctor, a pediatrician, and as thus I know exactly that a lack of access to clean cooking has major health implications, resulting in premature death due to respiratory diseases, with women and children bearing the worst consequences. Moreover, women are already burdened with household responsibility, spend up to 5 hours daily gathering cooking materials, exacerbating, as we have heard as well, socioeconomic disparities. So this challenge, coupled with the environmental toll of deforestation, underscores the interconnectedness of clean cooking with broad development, gender equality, and the environment. All of these issues are part of the core focus of the number of multilateral fora. However, to date, clean cooking has not featured too prominently. This is the year where that is changing. Already we saw clean cooking appear in the G7 Energy, Environment and Climate Communiqué, with direct reference to this summit. Our next speakers all represent a number of different circles and fora where clean cooking stands to feature more prominently in the coming years and get a clear multi-year agenda and mandate needed to assure continued progress and advancement on this agenda. It is vital to make 2024 a turning point on ensuring clean cooking access for all becomes a priority across these interconnected agendas. This is what we are here to discuss with the global leading voices from these spheres. To begin this conversation, it's now my privilege and honor to introduce our distinguished speakers. Dr. Tedros, my dear friend, Director General of World Health Organization, His Excellency Mukhtar Babayev, COP29 President-designate and Minister for Ecology and Natural Resources of Azerbaijan, Mr. Simon Steele, Executive Chief Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Ms. Damilola Ogunbiji, CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary-General for Sustainable Energy for All and co-chair of UN Energy, and Her Excellency Chrysoula Sakharopoulou, Minister of State for Development and International Partnership of France. Thank you very much, Madam Minister, also because France is our great host country. So I would like to invite Dr. Tedros to take the floor here in the lecture.
Thank you, President Bashele, our moderator. Your Excellency, President Samia Hassan of Tanzania, Your Excellency, President Nasimbe of Togo, Your Excellency, President M.B.I of Sierra Leone, and Your Excellency, Prime Minister Sture of Norway, and IAE Executive Director Biro, ADB President Adesina, honorable ministers, fellow panelists, dear colleagues and friends. Bonjour à tous et à tous. It's an honor to be here. And I thank Tanzania, Norway, the IEA, and the African Development Bank for your leadership on this critical issue and for co-chairing this event. I will join my brother Akin actually in saying I'm talking here today not only as Director General of WHO, but as a child who witnessed the problem with clean cooking. I thank the presence of all the political leaders, and I'm really glad to see that because that will give political momentum. As you know, breathing and cooking are essential for life. And yet, for millions of people, they're a cause of disease and death, from stroke, cancer, and asthma. WHO estimates that every year 3.2 million people die from household air pollution generated by dirty fuels and stoves for cooking. And around 1/4 of the world's population still depends on wood, charcoal, dung, and crop waste as their primary energy source for cooking, including more than 900 million in sub-Saharan Africa, and that number continues to rise. Women, children, and marginalized communities are the worst affected. Polluting fuels are a threat to the health of people and the health of our planet, as President Samia said earlier. Household air pollution is one of the leading sources of black carbon, a powerful, short-lived climate pollutant. In some places, the use of polluting fuels for cooking contributes to almost half of all ambient air pollution or indoor air pollution. This is not only a technical problem, but one deeply entwined with poverty, development, and infrastructure. To solve this challenge, we need leadership and partnership. We need political leadership, and I thank Your Excellencies, President Hassan, President Macron, President Gasimbe, President Bio, Prime Minister Sture, for demonstrating that leadership today. And I hope you will continue to mobilize your colleagues to join you. And we need financial leadership, and I thank the ADB for the significant commitment today, $2 billion US. Also to the European Union, to PM Sture, and those who are making pledges today. And we need technical leadership, which is where WHO can make the biggest contribution. By the way, Prime Minister Sture told you about his work in WHO in the past, so I think WHO is represented through him and me. And with clarity from WHO, the full support we can give to this very important cause. And we have a long history of supporting countries with recommendations, tools, and technical resources to reduce air pollution and the disease it causes. And fourth, we need partnership. We need each other. Our meeting today is a powerful demonstration of the different strengths we all bring. And I commend the IEA for bringing us together. And thank you, Mr. Birol. And also for the technical consultations you have done to prepare for this summit. WHO is committed to working with you and with our fellow UN agencies to accelerate access to clean cooking fuels as a top development priority. In 2018, we created the Health and Energy Platform of Action, bringing together a strong network of countries, UN agencies, civil society organizations, researchers, and other development partners to accelerate access to clean cooking for health. And together with our partners at the World Bank, we recently released the first global roadmap for a just and inclusive cooking transition, which outlines the strategy to eliminate cooking poverty and promote net zero clean cooking for all. In March next year, WHO will host our second conference on air pollution and health, and clean cooking will be high on the agenda. Thank you all for your political leadership, the financial leadership, the technical leadership, and the partnership that you're demonstrating today. My thanks especially to the IEA for mobilizing this broad coalition of partners to support some of the most vulnerable populations in my continent, Africa. WHO welcomes and affirms the Clean Cooking Declaration because breathing and cooking should always be a source of life, not a cause of death. Merci beaucoup, and I thank you. I'm back to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros, and for your leadership on continuing giving so much priority in the health agenda as well. And now I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Mukhtar Babayev, COP29 President-designate and Minister for Ecology and Natural Resources of Azerbaijan, here to the lectern.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we express our thanks to the International Energy Agency and the co-chairs for the opportunity to discuss African clean cooking and the plan for COP29 to enhance ambition and enable action. It is a pleasure to join everyone and build on the partnership Azerbaijan has developed with Africa, most recently through our period as a chair of the non-aligned movement. Ladies and gentlemen, the direct impact of climate change on the African continent is clear and present, from droughts in southern Africa and recent floods in East Africa. When we meet in Baku for COP29, these affected communities must be front and center in our minds. We will work across two parallel pillars. They are mutually reinforcing, where action on each sends a strong signal in support of other. This involves setting clear national plans to keep 1.5 within reach and leave no one behind, while also putting in place the finance we need to deliver. On the one hand, we need the parties to signal their own determination to act with ambitious indices, national adaptation plans, and transparency reports. On the other hand, we need enable action by unlocking climate finance. Within this framework, we are aimed to use opportunities of clean cooking. First, the next NDCs will be a chance to present country-owned vision for sustainable development. This should include developing tailored strategies for promoting clean cooking as a part of comprehensive national plans. The COP29 presidency within the Troika platform is also working to enhance international cooperation to ensure that parties receive all the support they need to design and implement the next generation of NDCs. We are already working with our colleagues from UNFCCC, UNDP and the UN Secretary General's office to ensure that we use full potential and capacity on the UN system. COP29 presidency is actively engaging with multiple actors across international and domestic public finance, multilateral financial institutes and the private sector. These financial actors should be ready to allocate higher shares of their investment portfolios also to support clean cooking. This year we must negotiate a fair and ambitious new climate financial goal, which can contribute to addressing challenges such as clean cooking. Additionally, functioning of Article 6 will enable parties to implement their climate plans and targets to promote sustainable development and environmental integrity, including using market-based approaches. In these views, we believe that all parties will actively engage in Article 6 negotiations and will make every effort to achieve a tangible outcome during COP29. As COP29 presidency, we will do our best to facilitate this dialogue. Dear friends, by providing financial resources, technology transfer, capacity building and policy support, African countries will be better enabled in transitioning to cleaner and more efficient cooking solutions. This support can improve health outcomes, reduce deforestation, mitigate climate change and enhance energy access for millions of the people across the continent. We as COP29 presidency are committed to doing our part to enhance ambition, enable action and ensure that we can provide clean cooking access for all of Africa by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Babayev, for that remark and the leadership during COP29 in this direction. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Simon Steele. He is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. I will invite you to the lectern.
Michelle. Excellencies, colleagues, friends. Around 2% of overall human-caused emissions comes from cooking. And 2% may sound like a very small number, but that is equivalent to the emissions that are generated by aviation and the emissions generated in the shipping sector. So it is significant. At COP28, international donors committed to investing billions of dollars into clean cooking, which can make a dent in the 3 to 4 million premature deaths attributed to household air pollution globally. And this is one of the clearest examples I've seen of the benefits of actions outweighing the costs, in particular, the benefits of action in support of women and children, in reducing poverty, in improving health, increasing energy access, whilst at the same time fighting climate change. This is an incredible opportunity. And we have heard some of the numbers, just $4 billion per year over the course of the next 6 years to address this particular issue. But the reality is, to date, despite all of the momentum that was generated in Dubai last year, the funding mobilized, both through the private sector and through international development community, has generated a fraction of what is needed. And we have to change that. Again, we've heard 1,000 of us here in the room representing many of the entities who can actually make a difference. But what is important with the pledges made, this cannot be a case of simply recycling old pledges. We need to build that momentum and move forward. And as Fatih said in his opening, we need to leave here with some concrete actions and a very, very clear path forward as to how we're going to address this particular issue and take advantage of the global opportunity that is presented to us. Which is why the UNFCCC is committed and endorses the Clean Cooking Declaration today. And the UNFCCC will be working with the IEA to check progress on the pledges and commitments made to ensure that there is full transparency and accountability as we move forward. In addition, and as Minister Babayev outlined in terms of the vision for COP29 ahead of us, there is a unique opportunity this year for countries to come forward with the next generation of national climate plans, NDCs, and to include within those plans efforts and initiatives in addressing clean cooking. It is a unique opportunity. Currently, only 60 NDCs from low to middle income countries have specific actions that speak to addressing clean cooking. So this year is the opportunity, one small step that, added to all of the other small steps that are needed, can accumulate to the tremendous change that is required if we are to close the ambition and implementation gap between now and 2030. And as we continue to hear, as I close, we have the technology to achieve this. This is low-hanging fruit. We know the benefits of cleaner cooking, and now is the time for us to scale this. And the benefits for climate, for health, for women and children, for equity is enormous. But with the will of those of us here in the room, we can achieve this. I thank you.
I think it's very important to remember that it can be done, and it's not that much money. So I would like now to invite to the lectern Ms.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to join you today to speak about an issue that I am particularly passionate about: access to clean cooking. However, I am afraid that if current trends continue, nearly a quarter of the world's people, mostly in low and medium income countries, will still lack access to clean cooking solutions in 2030, falling short of our SDG 7 target. And this is a key milestone if Africa is meant to grow green. We continue to make significant progress thanks to the great work of the African Development Bank and the World Bank on electrification, but we cannot say the same when it comes to clean cooking. So what is the United Nations and some of my colleagues and Sustainable Energy doing to ensure that clean cooking is really for all? Let me elaborate on three key things. Firstly, policy and planning. Secondly, financing. And thirdly, innovative solutions. For policy and planning, we continue working with governments and partners to promote the transition to modern cooking and respond to UN Energy's call for country-specific pathways and roadmaps to guide the transition to universal access to clean cooking by 2030 and, of course, net zero by 2050. At SE4All, we advocate for the support and development of national integrated energy plans, where we integrate planning and implementation of both electrification and clean cooking from the outset. This has been demonstrated really well in the great work we see in Malawi, Madagascar, and obviously Rwanda, who has very, very keen and very ambitious targets. Back at home, in my country, Nigeria, I welcome the launch of the 750 million Nigerian Distributed Access Through Renewable Energy Scale-Up Program, DARES. But we have to make sure that as we are performing these energy access programs, clean cooking has to be prioritized as part of them. I used to run the largest energy access program, of which Mr. Adesina is very familiar with in my home country. And one of the things I really regret is that we made such an effort in solar electrification, but we totally forgot about clean cooking. And what we're doing now is going back to those communities. So we do not have time for 2030 to make that mistake again. As a second critical intervention when it comes to policy and planning is the identification of investment-grade opportunities. We are supporting several countries to develop the implementation of their energy transition investment plans, of which transition to clean cooking has to be, and it is a key part of what we're developing. We're already seeing countries such as Ghana, Kenya, and His Excellency spoke today from Sierra Leone about showcasing a pipeline of investable projects across sectors that will lead to decarbonization and renewable expansion to ultimately attract capital, especially from the private sector. On finance, we have heard about the chronic lack of financial flows to the clean cooking sector. In Africa today, investments represent only 6% of what is necessary to achieve our universal access targets by 2030, and I'm very glad today for all the pledges we've heard so far. We look forward to collaborating with the IEA to monitor, analyze financial investments, to enhance the transparency and effectiveness of clean cooking progress. We're also very thankful for the Clean Cooking Alliance for spearheading the principles for responsible carbon financing in clean cooking that will be highly effective in delivering what we call the African Carbon Market Initiative. On innovation, exploring the use of resource-based financing to close this gap is key, and our Universal Energy Facility, which focuses on standalone system, is also demonstrating that, with pilots running in Lagos with women who are cooking for a living and showcasing that they can actually afford these solutions. Cooking with clean electricity also offers promising scalability and sustainable alternative, and that's why we are championing the Global Electric Cooking Coalition, GECCO, launched at COP28. Clean cooking also goes hand to hand with education. Therefore, in collaboration with the World Food Programme and UK Aid funded MEX and other partners, we've designed a large-scale institutional e-cooking initiative in schools. We're very happy to see Her Excellency Tanzania talking about it today, because that is the first country we're going to roll out. In conclusion, I look forward to working with you and alongside all of you in your programs and your processes to make sure that Africa especially has a just and equitable transition when it comes to clean cooking. Thank you all for listening.
We have some time. We have to recover now. So would like to invite Her Excellency Chrysoula Sarapopoulou, Minister of State for Development and International Partnership of France.
Beaucoup, Madame la Présidente, Cher Michel, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers amis, j'aimerais tout d'abord remercier et saluer l'engagement de M. Fatih Birol. Merci beaucoup, Fatih, pour votre engagement qui est très sincère et je sais que quand vous parlez, vous tenez beaucoup à ça. Mais permettez-moi aussi de saluer une grande femme, Madame la Présidente Souloukou, qui est à travers ça et promouvoir la promotion de l'émancipation des femmes. Bien sûr, je remercie le Premier ministre Storr pour son engagement et mon ami Akin pour la Banque de développement africaine. I switch on in English now. I have two simple messages for you, my friends. First of all, in a world of polycrisis, we need solutions that address at the same time the climate, the nature, and development crisis. It is also a matter of efficiency, as budget constraints are growing globally. My second message is that such one-stop solution exists, but they need strong political leadership. We need to put them at the core of every agenda, from climate to health, from biodiversity to gender equality. With school feeding and electrification, clean cooking is one of the most powerful one-stop solutions. All of you have underlined that the clean cooking addresses food insecurity, deforestation, carbon storage, gender equality, and health, my dear friend and brother, Dr. Tedros, and many more SDGs. So, why, at the end of the story, we're underinvesting in clean cooking? This is a reality. And what are we missing? First, we lack a systematic integration at the international and the national levels. Beyond COPs, health forums, and the UN, I insist on the integration of clean cooking in national energy planning. Through its support to the JET Peace, France would like to help more actively its partner to integrate this important issue in their policies. The second message that I think that we missed is that we need visibility and a constituency to promote clean cooking at the international level. That is why, building on the outcome of this summit, France would like to propose to formalize a coalition of countries committed to clean cooking within the framework of the Paris Pact for the Planet and the People. The pact, supported by 54 countries, will be the perfect platform to catalyze our joint efforts. Clean cooking perfectly illustrates the pact's main message: no one should choose between fighting poverty and protecting the planet. And the last element that is missing to elevate clean cooking is money and expertise. France does its parts. For example, in Tanzania, we have funded experts within the Ministry of Agriculture to work on clean cooking, but we need to go faster. That is why I'm proud to announce today that France will systematically seek to integrate clean cooking within its €2 billion portfolio of annual investment in energy in developing countries. This is why we commit to invest up to €100 million in clean cooking in the next 5 years. Messieurs, j'invite tous les États, les fondations, les secteurs privés d'y participer à cet effort crucial pour les femmes, pour l'environnement et pour notre continent, l'Afrique. Merci.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, and in particular on that concrete prioritization that France will make on clean cooking. Well, we have just heard from global leaders on climate health and development about how the international community can ensure advancing the global clean cooking agenda. Today's summit, I think, underscores that intent and also elevates ensuring access to clean cooking for all as like a global agenda priority. And I'm sure that this is true, but let's walk the talk. So I would like now to introduce my dear friend, Dr. Kande Jumkela, Chairman of the Cooking Agenda. Thank you very much to all our distinguished speakers.
Thank you very much, President Bachelet. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a year ago, Fatih Birol called me up and said, Kande, we're looking at the analysis on clean cooking, and the numbers look terrible. We're worried. What do we do? I said to Fatih, let's be radical. He said, what does that mean? I said, frankly, I'm not sure. He said, well, I'm on my way to Brussels. I'm going to be meeting with the Commission. Then I said, I know something. Ask them for real money. So for a number of us today, 20 years in this march, it's an emotional day for us. I see some good friends, Sheila Parocha, Dr. Abu Zaid, Commissioner for Energy and Infrastructure of the African Union Commission, Madam Bachelet, Kimball Chen, many other friends here. Fatih, you have exceeded expectations. Thank you very much for convening this summit. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to inaugurate this pivotal next segment of the IEA Summit on Clean Cooking in Africa, focusing on mobilizing greater commitments to advance the global clean cooking agenda. Access to clean cooking solutions isn't merely a convenience. It is a necessity for Africa's prosperity and an imperative for global sustainability. This summit marks a critical juncture in positioning clean cooking access at the forefront of global energy, climate, and development agenda. To make meaningful progress on the global clean cooking agenda, mobilizing financial commitments and outlining concrete action plans are paramount. There is a critical role of bringing more resources to bear on clean cooking from various leading stakeholders, governments, development agencies, development banks, the private sector, and philanthropy. Multiple types of resources are needed, from development support, technical assistance, to private sector investments. Identifying possible investments and establishing a clear way forward for mobilizing them will send a resounding message. Achieving universal access to clean cooking is a shared priority for the international community. Our next distinguished speakers embody a strong understanding of what it takes to move the needle on clean cooking and what it takes to accelerate the implementation of clean cooking initiatives. Their views are instrumental in elevating clean cooking on the global development agenda. To begin the conversation, it is now my privilege and honor to introduce our distinguished speakers. His Excellency Dan Yannick Jorgensen, Minister of Development Cooperation and Global Climate. Bennion, Minister of State for Development and Africa, United Kingdom. Ambassador Sean Patrick Maloney, Ambassador to the OECD from the United States. The unpleasant task of being a tough task master, because I'm told we're running over 30 minutes behind, but it's for a good cause, and I'm sure lunch can wait a little, because now we need the real action, the near pledges from government to private sector, and it's my pleasure to first call upon His Excellency, the Minister from Denmark.
Thank you so much, my friend. Excellencies, high-level representatives. First of all, I would like to thank you, Fatih Birol, for your incredible leadership. We know each other very well. But one thing you don't know is that I've actually privately given you a nickname. I call you Elvis Presley. Because of the song, you know, where he goes, a little less conversation, a little more action. It's really the spirit of everything you do, and certainly the spirit of why we're here together today. Preparing a meal for your family should never jeopardize the health of you and your children. It should be self-evident, yet more than 1 billion people in Africa depend on polluting fuels and technologies to cook their meals every day. And the number is rising. If nothing is done, it'll be much higher in the future. We have to change this trend. And today presents an opportunity to do just that. Switching to clean energy technologies is life-changing and contributes to a broader sustainable development. It improves health, it protects the climate and the environment, it empowers women, and helps households save time and money. Clean cooking is at the heart of the climate and development nexus. I had no doubts when I was invited to this summit. We need to step up. We need to act. Denmark is already contributing to several innovative global funds, such as the World Bank's Clean Cooking Fund and the Spark Plus Africa Fund. Many Danish NGOs have also clean cooking programs targeting some of the most vulnerable populations. But I've listened to you, Fatih. We need to do more. So, I'm pleased to be able to announce that Denmark aims to double our contribution to clean cooking. Over the next 4 years, we will allocate $72 million. As a first step, I can announce that we will allocate $20 million in contribution to the World Bank's Clean Cooking Fund. Denmark will also use this opportunity to advocate for the MDBs, the UN agencies, and climate funds to dedicate more resources to clean cooking. In this context, we very much welcome the African Development Bank's Sustainable Energy Funds for Africa's initiative to establish a dedicated clean cooking sub-program. Achieving universal access to clean cooking in Africa will depend heavily on the availability of sufficient international financing. Concessional finance should play a catalytic role in scaling up private sector investments and mobilize innovative financing models. However, concessional financing will never be enough. To succeed, we need financing policies and partnerships to go hand in hand. All countries should make the clean cooking sector a more attractive and vibrant investment opportunity and strengthen entrepreneurship within clean cooking. International financing, combined with country-led political commitments, national programs, and blended financing, is key for achieving the progress that we need. This should also be part of the new rounds of national and determined contributions to be prepared this year. Addressing clean cooking is also an opportunity to put women back in the driving seat. Women are change agents and should be at the center of any clean cooking program. Finally, let me underline the importance of targeting the poorest households, including displaced settlements, marginalized communities, and indigenous peoples. They cannot bear the full cost of accessing clean cooking alone, and we cannot and should not leave anyone behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now recognize His Excellency Prince Jamie de Bourbon de Prame from the Netherlands.
Presidents, Prime Minister, Excellencies, dear friends, it's really a privilege to attend this first international summit on clean cooking. When we talked about these issues in the past, you were maybe 60, 100 people in the room brainstorming how to promote this sector. But this is the first time we really have it on the global agenda. So congratulations to IEA, to Tanzania, Norway, African Development Bank, and the Clean Cooking Alliance for taking the lead. Now, this is a great opportunity. We focus on clean cooking primarily with a focus of health, safety, economic well-being, dignity of women and children. But this is, as a climate envoy, I have to emphasize and echo Simon Steele, also a great opportunity to at best 2% of global emissions. And as he said, it's equal to the aviation sector or the shipping sector, or to put it in the country perspective, somewhere in the spectrum between Brazil or Japan's annual emissions or Indonesia's annual emissions. So it's a great goal to focus on. Now, governments and businesses are looking for cost-effective ways to offset emissions, and this income could potentially go directly to the most vulnerable people we're trying to help. On financing, the EU is leading on climate finance globally, and we are one of its member states. And our public finance for climate is fully grant-based. And we've been a dedicated partner for more than a decade on clean cooking. We only started to really account for it since 2021. It was part of the basket of SDG 7. But since 2021, we already spent 132 million euros on this. Now, we have doubled our ambition recently on SDG 7.1, which includes clean cooking, to reach not 50 million, but 100 million people by 2030. And to be able to do so, We have an extensive portfolio of direct investments in energy access, locally and bottom-up, but also we are mobilizing multilateral funding where most of our funding is, and the private investments. To reach this goal, this additional ambition, last year, and we haven't announced it anywhere, we silently did so, and if Fatih Birol would have invited me a couple of weeks earlier, I could have waited a little bit more and announced it here, but we silently approved another 210 million euros to go to SDG 7.1. So we were a bit ahead of the curve, Fatih, but I hope we can use it. And now we also added, we were looking what can we additionally do for this summit here. We on Team Europe, together with Spain, Sweden, the Netherlands and the European Commission, we're adding funding for the regional clean cooking action for West Africa. Now, it's not just about finance, but also of government policy. And in my previous experience, I was on loan from the Dutch government to the UN refugee agency, and I visited Rwanda. And Rwanda made a decision for all of its population to move to clean cooking, but had to start with the refugee camps. Why? You've got large institutional group of people supported by international organizations who are buying their energy to go towards clean cooking. In that case, it was LPG. They could buy in volume, reduce the price, create a market, and then start with a better market position to sell the local population. You don't resolve it just with that, but institutional buyers is an incredibly good start to bring good cooking to the populations. So it's about money, it's about government policies, and lastly, it's about innovation. 4 years ago, electric cooking was not part of the spectrum. Right now it is. So there's a lot of leapfrog technology ready to go. Thank you very much.
We thank Your Royal Highness for your intervention. We now recognize Right Honourable Lord Bennion from the UK.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and thanks to the IEA, to Norway and Tanzania for helping bring us together, and to Fatih for shining a light on this issue. Can I start by just complimenting my Dutch and Danish colleagues for mentioning displaced people. This was brought home to me recently on a trip to Africa, and it's vital that we hold them in our minds as well. But it cannot be right that some 2.3 billion people around the world lack access to the clean cooking that so many of us take for granted. And while every little helps, when it comes to making sure that we keep 1.5 degrees target alive, the ripple effect of making progress on this goes far beyond the 1 to 2% of global emissions alone. Toxic fumes from the wood and charcoal burned for cooking contribute to around 3.7 million premature deaths around the world every single year. And as we've heard, women and children, especially girls, bear the brunt of collecting firewood, so changing will help keep them safe and prioritise the employment and education that are so vital to fulfilling their potential, as well as that of their families, communities and countries. And of course, we can help countries protect and restore the world's great forests, including the Congo Basin, that stores immense quantities of carbon and supports a vast web of life, millions of livelihoods and rainfall right across the African continent and the global weather systems on which we all rely. Of course, for so much of the transition away from fossil fuels and towards cleaner, greener, more sustainable and more renewable forms of energy, the market is racing ahead, even ahead of politics. When it comes to clean cooking, however, this is not the case. So for our part, the UK has committed £67 million to clean cooking projects since 2016, helping millions to lead longer, healthier, more prosperous lives from Africa to Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific. And today I'm delighted to announce a further £8.5 million to help communities across Tanzania and Uganda to access the innovative electric cooking solutions they need. Yet with some 1.9 billion people set to still rely on polluting fuels to prepare their food by 2030, we need a truly global effort. So it's great to see on this agenda here, as well as through Italy's G7 presidency, with 85% of those who lack access to clean cooking in sub-Saharan Africa, the African Union and the African Development Bank, as we've heard today, have key roles to play. Indeed, there are plenty of opportunities coming up, from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa to the UN General Assembly to New York Climate Week to COP29 in Azerbaijan. Brazil's G20 presidency is already prioritising clean cooking as part of a big push to make sure everyone can make the transition to cleaner energy. And as we think ahead and work together to make the most of COP30, that must stay in our mind. And of course, the UN Nature COP, CBD16 in Colombia, we expect a big focus on forests as well. For all of us now, we need to increase the investment from all sources and get existing flows of money moving in the right direction as quickly as possible if we're to reach the $4 billion needed annually by 2030 to solve this. And I'll finish by saying this. We who are lucky enough to have a leadership role often find our time in these roles very short. And so let's focus on this. This is a solvable solution. And when we look back on our times in the various roles that we have, we can see that we made a step that changed the quality of people's lives. And my final point is that we should hold in mind that woman in the film we saw right at the beginning and millions like her, and know that we can keep this relevant, not from the high-level international climate speak that we use, but relevant to hers and millions of people like her, whose lives we can change immeasurably. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that intervention, and thank you for reminding us that it's about real people. Thank you so much. We now recognize Ambassador Maloney from the United States.
Much. Let me first also acknowledge my Dutch, Danish, and British colleagues, not just for their commitment to clean cooking, but for their commitment to stay within the time allotted, which I think was very impressive. So congratulations to all of you, and I'll renew that commitment to getting you to lunch by doing the same. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you, Dr. Umkela. Thank you, of course, to the world leaders who preceded us. Your leadership and your commitment is inspiring. It's great to be here with Elvis Presley, a great American, also known as Director Fatih Birol. His leadership has truly been extraordinary. And I'm so happy to be here with our U.S. team, John Mitchell from U.S. EPA, who's been working together with USAID, the Department of Energy, and our other U.S. colleagues, along with the Clean Cooking Alliance, to advance these issues. You know, 36 years ago, I went to rural Peru as a young volunteer and worked in some very remote locations. And I can remember very vividly the woman who was the mother of the family I lived with, without electricity or without plumbing or without water, running water, used to prepare the family meals every day. And she would do so, of course, over an open fire. And we would collect the wood to do that. She would then also take some of the kerosene, I believe it was, and she would put it in her mouth, and she would spray it using her mouth as an aerosol sprayer over the family table and wipe it down so that the flies would not gather so thickly on the table. And I can remember thinking then, as a young man, how dangerous this must be to keep this kerosene in her mouth day after day, to just do the routine cleaning. What I did not think about was the fact that she also cooked every day over an open fire, and that all the mothers did when they gathered together to cook communally to feed the village day after day. And I did see the worry on their faces when their young daughters and children would go out to gather that firewood, knowing of the risks. So we know that these are real risks, both to human health and, of course, to women's safety. And of course, it's not just a matter of environmental and energy justice, there's also the climate threat. We've heard 2% of global CO2 emissions come from household cooking, putting it on par with aviation and shipping. And the United States government is taking many approaches to promote clean cooking, including using electricity, biogas, biomass stoves, even LPG to transition to net zero emissions. Over the next 2 years, I'm pleased to announce the United States government expects to spend more than $40 million over 2 years to advance the goal of clean cooking. That money will go to many initiatives, and particularly for testing and standard setting, so we can deploy new cook stoves with confidence. Already, we support the work of 11 cook stove testing labs in Africa. We are working toward a cook stove labeling initiative to assure minimum standards are met, and we are encouraging governments to adopt and use ISO clean cooking standards. To quote our former Secretary of State, First Lady Hillary Clinton, clean stoves could be as transformative as bed nets or vaccines, saving and improving the lives of millions. With more than 40% of the world's population using coal or biomass to cook or heat their homes, the scale of the problem is massive, but we can solve it. Not just for the sake of our climate future, but for the health and safety of our most vulnerable global citizens. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that statement. I want to underscore that it was Madam Clinton who mobilized the coalition to establish the Clean Cooking Alliance. Thank you very much for that leadership. Let us thank our public sector ministers for that pledge and for the announcements. We hope many more will follow. Thank you, gentlemen, for supporting this cause. Thank you. Public-private partnerships are the way to go. We need to leverage more capital and technology. So I'll invite you in groups of 5s, and each pledge will be about a minute so that we can catch up for lunch. It's my pleasure now to invite Patrick Puyani, Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive Officer, Total Energy. Mr. Alexander Eaton, Chief Executive Officer, Sistema Bio. Russell Hardy, Chief Executive Officer, Vitol. Peter Scott, Chief Executive Officer, Burn Manufacturing. Mr. Guido Brosco, Chief Operating Officer, Natural Resources, NI. We'll go straight to the committee. Energy. Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Fatih Birol, to organize this summit. As you know, Total Energy is very involved in Africa. And considering our involvement, we think that access to clean energy, and in particular to clean cooking, is a very important matter for our company. In fact, to address this situation, we believe, and I think the IEA shares this view, and as well, I read the conclusion of the G7 ministerial meeting on climate, energy, and environment, that LPG is a pragmatic, existing enabler for access to clean cooking, positively impacting health, gender equality, and the environment. LPG produces much less harmful fumes, saves an average of 2 hours per day spent collecting wood, and reduces deforestation. It's a safe, reliable, and competitive source of energy for Africa. And so we are today welcoming the call to action, and we want to contribute. We are already producing and distributing LPG in Africa, reaching 40 million people. But today we want to do more thanks to this call for action. First, and I am answering to the President of Togo, by producing more LPG in Africa, and in particular in Uganda, where we are investing $100 million to produce LPG in our Tilenga projects in order to be able to distribute it in Uganda. Uganda, only 5% of the population today have access to LPG. Thanks to that project, we'll expand the distribution. And our ambition is not only in Uganda, but more countries. We want to go from 40 million people being reached for clean cooking through LPG solution to 100 million people in Africa, 85, and in India. It will represent an investment until 2030 of more than $400 million. So together with the projects of production, Factory Barrel Total Energy is contributing 500 million barrels to the amount for the next 5 years. I hope it's a good, nice contribution.
Thank you.
And that you will understand. It will go to countries like Tanzania, of course, Mozambique, Rwanda, Uganda, and more territories where we are already distributing LPGs in Africa. I would also say a last word, but it's not so much only a matter of distributing, it's a matter of making LPG affordable. And so we want to innovate and to, in particular, to spread pay-as-you-cook solution. Because when you have to acquire, to cover the deposit for cylinder, for burner, plus 6 kilograms of LPG in a cylinder, that represents $30. It's too expensive for many people. So innovating and being able to connect some device to the LPG burners in order to promote pay-as-you-cook solution is also paramount importance in Africa to be pragmatic, and this is our commitment to African citizens and population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We invite Alexander Eaton, CEO of Sistema Bio. Your turn.
Hi. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, about 20% of the people that lack clean cooking access are smallholder farmers and family farmers in Africa, and they have all of the conditions that they need to be able to produce clean biogas in their homes for Tier 5, high technology, very clean, sustainable cooking solutions. We know this is possible because there are millions of people today cooking with biogas in Africa. Sistema Bio is the largest biodigester distributor on the continent, and we have tens of thousands of units that are installed on the continent, and our commitment moving forward will be to install over 300,000 biodigesters before 2030. That will mobilize $200 million of investment in the continent, and we can co-invest with farmers because by using biodigesters to produce clean cooking fuels, we're reducing methane emissions, so a very, very powerful and important greenhouse gas, and displacing biomass and fossil fuels. So let's not forget that we need to keep food security and smallholder farmers on the agenda when we talk about clean cooking, and by using biodigesters we can produce clean cooking fuels while also producing sustainable fertilizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sistema.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of Vitol and our affiliate company Vivo. For those that don't know Vitol well, it's a large investor in traditional, transitional and renewable energy production, infrastructure and trading. We have assets in 30 African countries, retail and wholesale, 4,000 petrol stations once the acquisition of Engen South Africa completes this month. And our investment in African infrastructure has long supported access to clean cooking. In recent years, we've invested over $200 million across carbon project cook stove businesses and LPG infrastructure in Africa. And we have funded over 2.1 million efficient cook stoves across 8 African countries in 8 separate projects. And our LPG distribution today spans 12 African countries and reaches more than 10 million households, and it's a footprint we certainly intend to grow. Importantly, in addition to minimizing particulate emissions, which I think everybody has heard today, every efficient cook stove also reduces carbon emissions significantly and shouldn't be forgotten. Recognizing LPG is not a practical solution for some rural populations, we're going to continue to invest in both LPG and cook stove solutions. And today, I'm pleased to announce we intend to invest across our African businesses as part of this summit, $550 million to go towards infrastructure, cylinders, distributions and cook stoves.
Wonderful.
So that will be Vitol business, Vivo business and our Engen business in South Africa. We appreciate that much more investment is required, and to unlock the investment needed in clean cooking, the private sector, we think there are a few key steps governments should take. So, firstly, give the industry regulatory stability and ensure the highest standards. And this is best through the support and implementation of best practice as laid out by the WLGA, which covers LPG markets. Implement an effective LPG carbon methodology that reflects the true reductions of CO2 to unlock plenty of direct investment into more finance for stoves. And finally, fully implement and support the Paris Agreement Article 6. Article 6 is the market mechanism, and that will enable market forces and incentives to help push the cooking.
Thank you.
The cost of the current cooking practice is too high in terms of health, society and deforestation, and we feel all stakeholders must work together on practical solutions to accelerate the rollout of clean cooking. And we look forward to engaging with governments, NGOs, and our energy sector colleagues to solve the problem together. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me call additional private sector to the stage and we'll move on. I wish to invite Greg Murray, Chief Executive Officer, Cocoa Networks, Belinda Ikezobo, Vice President for Emerging Markets, Power, Shell, Ethan Kay, Managing Director, BioLite, Alan Ebobise, Chief Executive. Leveraging now, additional 2 billion. It's still coming. Wonderful. We now invite Peter Scott, Chief Executive, Byrne Manufacturing.
Thanks. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've been working in clean cooking for over 35 years, and so I've devoted my entire life to do this. And so it's beautiful to see all of the people in this room who share that commitment and finally seeing it get the attention that it deserves. So I run Byrne, which is the world's largest cook stove company and carbon project developer. So we've produced over 5 million stoves. We have a capacity to do 500,000 stoves a month right now, and we design all and manufacture all our stoves in Africa. And because Africa is a diverse place, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So we make the world's best biomass, wood, charcoal, LPG, electric stoves, and we make them in Africa. So we employ over 3,500 people, 50% of whom are women. The commitments we'd like to make today is that right now we have manufacturing facilities in Kenya and also in Nigeria, but today we're committing to building new manufacturing facilities in Malawi, DRC, and Ghana. Yeah, last year we raised over 60 million. Yes, why not? Clap, yes. Woo! Beginning. So, of course, afterwards, if people would like to talk to me about opening new manufacturing facilities on the continent, we would love to do that. Last year, we raised $60 million in carbon credit pre-finance that we delivered to our customers. So I don't think people totally understand that right now we have the solution for this crisis. It's absolutely in our hands right now, and that solution is carbon credit pre-finance. A stove that would normally cost $40, which no one could ever afford, I can deliver that anywhere on the continent with my team for about $2 US. So with carbon credit finance, it's solved. It's done. All we need to do is for the people in this room commit to invest in carbon credits and to purchase carbon credits in the future. This year, we will deliver $50 million of carbon finance subsidy to our customers, but we could deliver $250 million with our partners. So please, if you'd like to partner with Byrne and help roll out biomass, LPG, and electric solutions, please talk to me afterwards. Thank you so much.
We need carbon finance to make the solutions affordable for the poor. We recognize Guido Brusco, Chief Executive Officer, NI.
Gentlemen, good morning and thanks for the opportunity today. In the last year, we have set as a company an ambitious target to achieve carbon neutrality on scope 1, 2, and 3 by 2050, with a solid roadmap of progressive targets reflecting our commitment to the energy transition. And the strategy is based on quite a large number of action activity to transform our business, while the residual emission would have been offset with high-quality carbon offset, gradually switching from the carbon avoidance to the carbon removal. And in this framework, we voluntarily designed and launched our Clean Cooking program in 2018, which today is reaching already almost 500,000 beneficiaries in Ivory Coast, Mozambique, Rwanda, Angola, and the Republic of Congo. This program is rapidly providing access to safe and highly efficient cooking devices, targeting millions of households who are relying today on inefficient cooking methods. So our program foresees also an extensive assessment of and monitoring during the entire life cycle to make sure that they are using the proper weight. And this would allow also us to have a deep socio-economic view on the situation, to maximize the local content, create job opportunities, and also promote the local cookstoves producers. So to guarantee high-quality projects, we also believe that the international community should implement a comprehensive list of principles to guarantee a responsible carbon finance and the integrity of the voluntary carbon markets. So, to conclude, on these premises, I'm very happy today to take the opportunity of this event to share our plan, which is to provide clean cooking access to more than 10 million beneficiaries in sub-Saharan Africa by 2027. And finally, fostering the shift from improved to clean cooking solution. Our ambition is to reach 20 million beneficiaries by 2030, and this is associated with an estimated expenses of $300 million US, and even more in the following years.
Thank you, NI. Thank you. Thank you so much. We recognize Greg Morey, Chief Executive Officer, Cocoa Networks. I visited your plant in Kenya.
Is the global leader in this new bioethanol cooking fuel industry. We now serve over 5 million people in Kenya and Rwanda. And so that makes us the largest modern cooking fuel utility in Africa outside the LPG industry. We've invested to date over $200 million in creating this scalable third pathway for modern cooking energy utilities, building on the solid foundation laid by electricity and gas. Bioethanol cooking utilities are now proven at scale. It took the gas industry 70 years to achieve 10% penetration in Kenya, and it took bioethanol just 4 years. Right? So speed and scale is what is required to solve the charcoal epidemic in Africa. Bioethanol cooking is quickly scalable and designed for partnering. We partner with host country governments with investment framework agreements around the enabling legislation. We partner with infrastructure owners and sustainable bioethanol producers, and of course with global corporate and government buyers of energy transition carbon. So Cocoa stands committed to work with our partners, current and future, in order to scale up this 5 million and hope to achieve a significant dent in the IEA's forecasts that bioethanol cooking can serve 100 million people by 2030 and 500 million by 2040. A third pathway for solving this problem with modern clean molecules and clean electrons. That is what Africa requires. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam President, I'm sure you are pleased that the men outnumber the women here. When the technical team, we worried that they will treat it again as a women's issue. Now you see we, the he for she, are ready to do business. We now invite Belinda Izazuba, Vice
Addressing the complex issue of closing the energy gap requires collaboration across sectors, including government agencies, international organizations, and private sectors. Shell recognizes its responsibility in shaping a more inclusive future. and therefore we recently announced a pledge to commit 200 million as part of a broader initiative in the near and medium term. This initiative will focus on several regions, including sub-Saharan Africa, and aims to help millions of people in underserved communities to get access to electricity and improve cooking conditions. Through our emerging markets power business, we've invested in companies that deal with energy access and clean cooking. And we've invested not just financially, but provided strategic guidance, commercial best practices, shared learnings, and technical and operational expertise when it comes to safety. An example of that is in Tanzania on the Champions of Charcoal Alternatives. I must take this opportunity to thank the likes of the International Energy Agency as vital conveners and knowledge centers. By having these sort of conversations, we're moving to transforming aspirations into tangible realities. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to use this platform.
BioLite.
If we were to think about the biggest problems affecting our world, anyone would have to include poverty, disease, and climate change. Open fire cooking contributes to all three of these simultaneously, and yet, outside of this room, we as a society pay almost no attention to this issue, even though very good solutions exist. My name is Ethan, and I'm the managing director of BioLite. BioLite designs and manufactures clean cooking, charging, and lighting products for off-grid households across sub-Saharan Africa. To date, we've delivered clean energy access to over 8 million people in 25 countries and have mitigated over 2 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere. In the clean cooking category, BioLite has developed the world's most advanced biomass cook stoves. Our clean cook stoves co-generate electricity from the heat of the fire, burning wood nearly as cleanly as gas, and converting and co-generating power to charge mobile phones. In addition, our charcoal stoves cut charcoal consumption by over 70%. A key insight of my doctoral research on clean cook stoves is that it's really hard to change cooking practices among households. As a result, BioLite's design approach has been to meet users where they are in terms of locally available fuels and cooking methods. Today, we are announcing a commitment to deploy $60 million to distribute and finance clean cook stoves to 3 million more households. That's 15 million more people by 2030. We will do so by leveraging our partnerships with large-scale distribution and financing companies across sub-Saharan Africa, who we've worked with for more than a decade. We will use carbon credits to reduce the price of our stoves, to make them more affordable for low-income households. We have always prioritized environmental integrity over profits in our carbon credits, crediting very conservatively. If you're an investor in the carbon space or looking to market stoves in your countries or interested in purchasing carbon credits, we'd love to partner with you. We can't do this alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ethan. I know you do many other things as well, but we're happy to see you in the clean cooking space as well.
Thank you, Kande. Excellencies, distinguished guests, before I announce our pledge, I'd like to make a public confession. Before Her Excellency, Madam President Suluhu Hassan and my chairman, Dr. Adesina, decided to champion this clean cooking agenda, my organization was not giving sufficient attention to the issue. Now we are. I therefore want to sincerely thank the co-chairs, my leaders, Her Excellency, Madam President Suluhu Hassan, my chairman, Dr. Adesina, Prime Minister Story, and my friend, IEA Executive Director Fatih Birol, for their visionary leadership that will elevate this issue and galvanize many organizations. I also want to acknowledge the presence of President Faure, Nyasimbe of Togo, and President Madabio, my leaders. Africa is committed to working with you on that. I have the honor and the great pleasure today to pledge Africa 50 full support to help advancing the clean cooking agenda in Africa. Consistent with our mandate, what we will do, we will develop private PPP projects to catalyze, mobilize more private capital to fund those projects. And I'd like to announce our pledge now, before Kande cuts me off. I'd like to announce that Africa 50 aims to mobilize up to $500 million in blended finance, project development funding, equity and debt investment into LPG infrastructure projects and to accelerate the value chain through multiple funds, including the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa. We already identified projects in Tanzania that we hope we work on, but we are open for business to work in many of our shareholders' countries. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for those of you online, our pledging window is still open. Fatih, I know you have a space for that, so don't stop pledging, keep pledging. But Fatih, yes, it's moving very well. As I said, be radical. You're more radical than I thought, but thanks to good political leadership from your co-chairs and also support from the private sector. In closing today's discussion, one wants to underscore a number of issues. One is prioritization. What we missed for 20 years is that even African countries were not prioritizing clean cooking. It was considered an afterthought, a woman's issue. That has changed today. Second, donors and DFIs were not prioritizing clean cooking. They'll put 20 million, 5 million. This is a multi-billion problem. That changes today. We have heard from leading voices across government, international organizations, and industry on making a cross-sectoral contribution to clean cooking. With renewed commitments and strengthened collaboration, we stand on the cusp of reaching meaningful and tangible progress to advance clean cooking for all. Let's thank our panel. Thank you so much. To take over. Thank you. Somebody wants to make an additional announcement. We modify accordingly. Is the person around here? From Sahara. Okay, well, Fatih will invite them. Fatih, over to you. Thank you.
Done. First of all, I would agree with Kande that it is our expectations vis-à-vis the realization is, we are over the moon as the International Energy Agency. But let me tell you, first of all, thank you very much to Madam President Tanzania. Thank you very much, Madam President, for all your efforts. Thank you very much, Prime Minister Storia, Norway. Thank you very much. Mr. Adesina, African Development Bank, thank you very much. All your leadership here and also African Development Bank, once again reiterating its financial commitment, which was already announced and gave a very good hope to all of us at COP28. So, dear colleagues, I would like to now tell you, today's fresh, new announcements at this very meeting accounts $2.2 billion. In addition to all the announcements made before, today's announcements coming from the public sources and private sources. This makes us very happy, and I know that a significant part of it comes from public sources in terms of concession funding, which will in turn unlock significant amount of private capital. What is after this? So at the IEA, as I said, we are a data organization. We believe in data. What we are going to do, all these announcements and commitments, one by one, we will put in our website. And we will follow up what is happening with this money. And in 1 year of time, we are going to share it with everybody what happened to this $2.2 billion. We will follow it as if it is our own money. It is not our money. We have a small organization, small budget, but a big heart. But we will take care of this money, and we will see how this money is spent, and we will share the results with the international community. Second thing we are going to do is there is a very strong international momentum now on clean cooking. We see, when I look at even the media today, I had a few minutes of time, we will continue to keep the momentum, if not increasing. I know that the G7 summit is going to taking care of that as a key topic. President Lula, only 2 months ago when I was in Brasilia, he told me that he is going to make clean cooking in Africa as a key topic in the G20 summit in Brasilia. Third, we heard from the COP29 presidency, it will be a major issue in COP29 presidency. Fourth, the President of Tanzania, President Hassan, and myself are organizing a special event in the UN General Assembly this September. And I was very happy to hear from the Minister of France that and I completely agree with her, that the Paris Pact for People and Planet can also be an umbrella for this very initiative. So we are here, and I can tell you that our aim to make the year 2024 a turning point is now being realized. So we are aware of that, and it is, I know, it is now or never. So we will do that. Thank you very much.
Wewe unaenda kuliona faili lake. Utaliona. Kalileta hapa faili. Endelea la pili.
Ziko pale kwenye begi. Sasa mimi sinaongea.
Jana si umemsikiliza? Kwani jana umemsikiliza kubaki na nyaraka? Mimi sitaki kusikiliza, nataka kutatua. Yaani ukimsikiliza afu kaacha akabaki na nyaraka zake, umesaidia nini? Nataka tutafute majibu ya changamoto za watu tunaoongoza. Twende la pili mama.
La pili, Mheshimiwa Mkuu wa Mkoa, ni la kiutumishi. Mimi ni mwalimu hapa jiji la Arusha. Wakati nimeomba kwenda masomoni mwaka 2012 kwa level ya masters, niliruhusiwa. Nikaenda. Wakati wa kusaini release, afisa elimu akawa anasafiri kwenda kwenye michezo Kibaha. Akaniambia nitasaini nikirudi, wakati afisa utumishi amemwachia hilo file. Nilipokuwa nafuatilia ile release, afisa utumishi akaniambia, wakati huo alikuwa anaitwa Molel, akaniambia mkuu wa shule ana matatizo na wewe. Nikamwambia kwa hiyo iweje? Naombeni release. Wakakataa. Wananilazimisha nirudi shule nikafundishe. Nikamwambia lakini mimi nimeruhusiwa na nimeshalipa hela. Na kule nilikokwenda tayari nimeshaanza masomo. Afisa elimu akaniambia endelea na shule. Afisa utumishi akanifungulia mashtaka.
Afisa elimu akamwambia endelea na shule, afisa utumishi akakufungulia mashtaka.
Ndio. Nikarudi, nikawa najibu sasa ile shauri TSC, wakati huo ilikuwa inaitwa TSD. Nikajibu yale mashauri, nikaendelea. Kule Dodoma ambako nilikatisha masomo, nikawa nimelipeleka hilo shauri ofisi ya TAMISEMI, kwa sababu kule chuo nako nilikuwa natafutwa. Nilipofika TAMISEMI nilihudumiwa ofisi ya katibu mkuu TAMISEMI, na nikaelekezwa na wakawapigia simu kuwapa maelekezo kwamba huyu kama alishafanya hizo process, leteni hizo barua tuone kama ni kweli na uhalali na kwenye mpango aliwekwa, na kweli nilikuwa na mpaka barua za kuwekwa kwenye mpango. Baada tu ya hapo na kutakiwa kurudi sasa, warudishe kwenye utumishi, kwa sababu mshahara ilikuwa inaingia lakini mimi siipati. Na huku kwenye ofisi ya mkuu wa mkoa nikawa nimetolewa kwenye list ya mishahara hewa Yaani nimeandikwa mimi ni mtoro, niko kwenye mishahara hewa, nilikuwa napokea mishahara hewa. Na ile mishahara mimi nilikuwa siipati.
Ilikuwa inaenda wapi?
Hapo hapo jiji na baki. Sasa sijui kama walikuwa wanirudisha hazina, maana yake hazina hawakuwa nayo, ndio maana nikawa kwenye list ya mishahara hewa. TAMISEMI wakanielekeza kwenda mahakamani. Nikaenda CMA. Nikashinda hizo kesi. Wakati niko CMA na shughulikia mshahara wangu, huo ambao ulikuwa unaitwa mshahara hewa. Wakaona sasa ili swala limalizike, wakanifukuza kazi. Kupitia TSCC sasa. Mtoro kazini, nikafukuzwa kazi. Ili kwamba ile issue ya mishahara hewa ishe. Kwa sababu sasa yeye
inawezekana kwa nakula.
Ile kesi ikafunguliwa, kesi ya pili ya unfair termination. Zote nikashinda. CMA. Nikaamriwa nirudishwe without loss of enumeration. Nilipo haki zangu zote na hela zangu zote. Na ile mishahara hewa ambayo waliniandikia nimeila, walipaswa wanilipe. Ofisi ya Katibu Mkuu Utumishi wakawaandikia barua wakiwaambia kwa sababu ni nyie ndio mmesababisha hilo na ni uzembe, mrudisheni. Lakini kwa sababu wao wakatoa taarifa za uongo ofisi ya utumishi kwa kuwadanganya, utumishi wakawaambia mfungulieni mashtaka. Wakanifungulia mashtaka mengine badala ya kunirudisha, wakanifungulia mashtaka ili kwamba na hiyo nayo ionekane nimekosa kabisa. Nikajibu zile mashtaka, nikaweka wanasheria. Unfortunately, walimu wako chini ya chama cha walimu CWT. Mwakilishi wa CWT siku hiyo nimeitwa kwenye kikao kwenye ofisi ya mkurugenzi, na mkuta yuko kule ndani na hajaongea na mimi na sijui ameitwa na nani. Alafu wanamwambia mkurugenzi kwamba mimi sipatikani kwa simu kwenye hicho kikao ambacho na mimi nilipaswa niwepo. Kwa hiyo wao wakawa wanaongea waandike muhtasari waupeleke kwa ofisi ya Katibu Mkuu Kiongozi bila mimi kuwepo, kwamba natafutwa sipo. Kwa hiyo napo ni mtoro bado. Bahati nzuri